Hello. All right, I'm gonna wait for some people to join and then we're gonna talk about what we're making today. Hi, Christy. I think I just saw your message on my blog, so I'll answer that in just a second here. Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Give me a wave. Hey. Cool. So today, Francois is going to be holding the phone in his hand the whole time. Hi, Nancy. So we got to cheer him on the whole time, okay? Hi, everyone. Oh, this is so awesome. So I actually realized that this is our fourth bake-along. I didn't realize. I was writing up everything and I was like, this is so exciting, our third bake-along. But no, guys, it's our fourth one. Oh, can't wait, desperately chopping fruit. All right, you got this, Annie. Awesome. I'll wait just a couple more minutes or seconds or something, whatever I'm feeling. I'll give you guys a little look at our setup here before we get started. Okay, I'm gonna turn it around, okay? Here we go. All right. So here I've got all of our ingredients ready. Everyone really excited? I actually really loved all of your guesses about what we're gonna be making. So I can't reveal it because I think maybe just one person guessed it correctly and that's it. So these are some dahlias that I got this morning at the market. Woohoo! Awesome! Yay! Amity, I'm excited that you get to join. It's awesome because it's summer and so we have light later into the evening and so we can all bake together at kind of a normal time for everyone. So it works out really well. Hey, awesome. All right, well, I'm gonna see if Francois can come over here and take the phone and then we're gonna get started. Woo! Okay, so if you're like me, you're gonna need to take your butter out of the refrigerator, which I totally forgot to do 2 seconds before that, but it's in the fridge, so took that step. So if you're the same as me, go ahead and go over to your refrigerator. I'm gonna walk with you guys. And let's get our butter out of the fridge, all right? First step, oh, there's Francois. You guys see him? All right, first step, here we go. Got my butter, ready to go. All right. Oh, and you get a little peek at the kitchen too. Here you go, here's the kitchen, woo. All right, hey Francois, ready for you. Let's go get him, here we go. All right. There he is. All right, turning it around. Here we go. All right, handing it over. Awesome. Let's go. I'll go over to my place over here. Cool. So if you're joining for the first time, we are doing a bake-along, which is super fun, which essentially means that you guys hopefully have all of your ingredients and all of your equipment that you need to make today's special treat. And it's a surprise. And so I'm going to reveal what we're making today. We are making something that is truly classic in the US, but we're gonna do it with something that is super classic in France as well. So in France, one of the first things that people learn how to make is the pate brisée, which is a simple pastry butter crust. So it's what we use in the States to make pie. They use it here to make quiche. And so today, if you guys have not guessed it yet, we are going to be making an all-American fruit pie. And we're gonna learn how to make a pie crust together. And we're gonna make it and keep it super simple and have fun. And we're gonna have amazing results. So if you guys have ever been nervous about making a pie crust before, I know I was for a very long time because there's a lot of like little kind of faux pas or tips like, use vodka, use ice cold water, no. And you don't really have to do all of those things. There's some basic things, obviously, that you have to keep in mind. But other than that, everyone can do it with just flour, butter, salt, a little bit of sugar if you want, and that's it. So we're gonna make it how the French grandmères make it still to this day, and all of the French kind of make it in their kitchens. So it's very exciting. Before we actually get into it though, make comments. Francois is behind the camera, so he can call them out to me in his awesome accent, which is always fun to listen to too. So the more questions that you ask, the more you get to hear the awesome French accent too. So keep that in mind. He's not shaking his head and going, oh God. All right, so I'm gonna be doing the measurements in metric. If you guys are going to do the cup measurements, just please refer to the post that I did with all of the ingredients. All of your exact measurements are there. The reason why I'm doing metric measurements is because it gets into baking ratios. So for baking ratios, it makes it so easy to do a lot of things. So for our basic pie crust, it is 2 parts of flour to 1 part of butter. So how does that work out? So it means that if I'm doing 100 grams of butter, then I need 200 grams of flour. So for example, today, we're gonna do 300 grams of flour. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn on my scale, guys. You go ahead and start with me, okay? So like 300 grams of flour. First thing in here. And this is how I measure it. I just pour it out of the container. And today we're actually using some flour that is locally milled here in Brisée, which is pretty cool. So 250, a little bit more. So in terms of your measurements, a good rule of thumb for a pie crust or for a quiche dough is to start about with 300 grams of flour. And so that way you have plenty of dough to put everything together, but you also have a little bit extra. So if you want to do like some fun decorations on top, then you have a little bit of extra for that. All right, so I have my 300 grams of flour in here. Next up is your salt. I'm using a gray sea salt. I prefer sea salt when I'm baking. But anything that's fine, you don't want to use the really big kosher salts or the Himalaya salts. If it's really finely ground, that's cool too. But you want something that's fine so it actually gets in there very evenly. So I'm just going to do a little shake in here. So that was maybe like 2 or 3 pinches, if that. And then I'm going to weigh in my butter. So remember I had 300 grams of flour. And now I'm going to do half of that in butter. So 150. And you guys see it's nicely cubed, it's cold from the refrigerator. And that's it. It's very easy. It's a lot of butter because it's delicious. Still going. Oh, there we go.
Yes, it is delicious.
It is delicious. And that's it, guys. That's all we're gonna need at this point. Have your water handy. So I actually normally do this in the kitchen right next to the kitchen sink. Funnily enough, I seriously just turn on the spout, the water spout, and I will just take the bowl and go under it when I'm ready to add the water. But let's talk about your butter first before you start working it in, okay? So your butter right now, your first step that you're gonna do is just toss it lightly into your flour. You wanna coat all those pieces of butter before you get started. Okay? And the important thing is that you don't want your butter to start melting. That's the only thing that you really have to be concerned about here. So we're gonna work fast because as soon as you start touching your butter, the more it's gonna warm up because we're working this into our flour. And so the more energy we put into it, just thinking about it kind of scientifically, right? The more that our butter is going to heat up, okay? So the motion that I want you guys to do, and I'm just doing this with clean hands, it's the easiest way to do it. And also it gets back to the fact that when you're doing pastry, you want to be conscious about textures. And so if you use a cutter or something like that, which works really well if you have warm hands, that's a really good idea. but I really encourage you to go ahead and do it first with your hands so you can feel what it's supposed to feel like, okay? So this is the motion that you're gonna do. So it's kind of like, one of my chefs told me it's like, show me the money. So you're pressing your butter. Yeah, it's pretty funny. So you're actually going like this with your hands, okay? I've made a batch of scones, like that's 3 times this amount, and I did it all by hand. You can do it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick it up. Let's have Francois get a little bit closer.
How much butter did you add?
I added 150 grams of butter, unsalted butter. And then you'll see I'm just picking it up and I'm pressing. I'm actually pressing and smearing the butter against my fingers. Can you guys see that? You see, so I'm doing that motion. I'm breaking up my butter pieces. And what I'm shooting for is something that's about pea size. We hear that pretty often. That's kind of like the golden rule for working in butter with like a pie crust or something like that. But you'll see I'm just kind of smearing. Do you see that motion? It's like this. I'm pressing the butter against my fingers and I'm smearing it with my thumb and breaking it up into little pieces. Because you see, I actually started with some pretty big chunks here, pretty big. And so now I already have bigger and smaller pieces. So I'm not going to talk too much, but I want you guys to work as fast as you can, okay? So doing the same motion, and we're just going to work this in. Do you guys feel really cool right now? You're making a pie crust from scratch. That's a pretty cool thing.
We have baked meat to Paris and China.
Oh, baked meat in Paris. Hi, girl. So if you just now joined, we are actually making an all-American fruit pie. But we're using the base, which is a Pate Brisée, which is a super classic French crust. And so it's a really good base recipe to know, to have in the back of your pocket. You can use this for quiche. That's kind of what it's classically used here for. And then the other thing I use it for is pie. I don't use it for my fruit tarts because I use another crust recipe because I think it's a little bit nicer.
So we have a question. Do you put your bowl in the fridge beforehand so it helps keep
No,
butter cool?
I don't. And you guys, I want to tell you, I am done mixing in my butter. So I want you guys to do it that fast. So if you're at this point, this is where I am. I'm going to show you kind of what my pieces look like. You'll notice I have some big pieces and I have some smaller pieces. But that is as much as I'm going because I'm feeling my butter and I'm feeling that it's starting to get a little bit warm, okay? If you are nervous and your butter is starting to melt, which does happen, you can stick this bowl, all of this, in the refrigerator for a couple minutes and then add your water. But I think if you guys worked as fast as you did, as I did here, then you should be good to go. So next step. Okay, very easy. We're gonna add some water. This is cold water. Again, you can add ice cubes if you want, but I don't. This is just cold water from the tap. So like I was saying earlier, what I do is literally, if I'm making this in the kitchen, I turn on the water and I just go like this with the bowl really quickly. And I add a little bit of water and that's it. So I'm going to tell you that, yeah, I don't know.
You shouldn't say that.
So yeah, well, it works really well for me. And it's fast, it's like no mess, that sort of thing. So here's the thing. I'm going to show you my technique for moving it in. So stop touching your stuff. If you're still kind of working in your butter, stop touching it for a second so I can kind of tell you about the next step. Because I don't want your butter to get wet, like too melty, too warm, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna slowly add your water. So this is where it's nice when you have a friend. So a friend could just add in your water about a tablespoon at a time. That's it. Friends actually might do this. You might participate here a little bit. But I do it too, just by myself, like I was saying, just a little bit. But it seriously is just a little touch. You're just gonna add it just a little bit at a time. That's plenty. That's plenty. And then what I want you to do is for your additions, you're literally just tossing. Do you see how what I'm doing? I'm just tossing my flour and my butter pieces. I'm just coating those pieces with the water. I'm gonna have you add a little bit more. Oop, that's good. So about like for you, Frenchie, Francois, so it's literally like a cuillère à café. C'est tout. Okay, so very small amounts. But did you see how this has changed? I already have lots of big clumps here. Do you see? So all I'm doing is just tossing. I'm just tossing and I'm feeling. And what I want you to do too is kind of start to press it together with your hand just a little bit to see how everything is coming together. Do you see? So I already noticed I still have a lot of dry pieces, which means I need some more water. So just a little bit. Ooh, that's plenty. So you notice I'm saying that's plenty because really all you need is just a little boom, boom. That's it, okay? So just a little toss. And again, I have more big pieces that are forming. And so again, I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna go, okay, I'm gonna see if it's holding together because I want this eventually to come into a ball, okay? And so I still see a lot of dry pieces. So actually, I'm gonna do this addition so I can show you. So just a very small amount, that's it. Do you see how small that was? It was like a teaspoon or a tablespoon. That was
very small.
Very small, okay? Because the important thing is you don't want to over add your water. If you do, you'll be okay, I promise you. You can just add a little bit more flour. But what you're looking for, and this is why it's important to do it with your hands, is you're looking for what feels like a pie dough. And I think a lot of us know what that is. You don't want it to be super wet, and you don't want it to be super dry. So you notice now I'm kind of grabbing it together, and look how much more it's coming together for me. So on total, I'm gonna say I probably added about 6 tablespoons or so of water. And I'm just estimating here. But notice how I kind of was able to press it together with my fist. And now I have a nice sized ball, but I still have some pieces that are dry that I'm feeling they're not sticking in with that ball, okay? So again, a very small amount, teaspoon, very carefully, that's it, okay? Add it, toss it in there. And then really, I'm just gonna put it all together now, squishing it all together. Any questions, guys? I'll stop here in a second so you can ask questions because I know we're kind of in the thick of it. And that's it. Did you guys see like how long has it been? I don't even know how long it's been, but we just made a pie dough. That's all you're gonna tell us?
Ouais,
5 minutes? 5 minutes? 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Mm.
And we made a pie crust. That means, guys, you can make it yourself and you're gonna rock it, okay? That was it. All right, so you got quite a bit here. You see, I just am bringing it together into a ball, and I'm not trying to touch it too much. That's the most important thing right now. But I have a really beautiful pie dough. Okay, what can go wrong? Let's talk about that while I get some plastic wrap. Okay? Pretty cool, come follow me. So it's nice you get to see the apartment a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and wash my hands really quickly. And so what can go wrong with your pie crust? The biggest thing that happens, and hopefully you can hear me. Let me know if you can't. The biggest thing that can happen is adding too much water, okay? So if that happens, like I was telling you, you're going to add some more flour until it comes together and it's not wet. Because you want something that feels like a dough, right? It shouldn't be wet. It should be nice and kind of stick together. This is great walking backwards. So that's not really important. So what do we do here? What are our big tips? Cold butter, not touching it too long. Again, it took us 5 minutes max. That's it. And not adding too much water. So now what I want you guys to do is take some plastic wrap, saran wrap, same difference. And I'm gonna have you guys wrap it up. So this is really important too for your pie dough, for your pate brisée, is it needs to rest for a little bit. It needs to chill and kind of sit and hang out so everything's kind of all nice and good before we roll it out and we put it in our pie dish, okay? So, trick for you guys, which is really important when you're chilling things, is I wrap it up loosely first, very loosely, and then you want to press it as flat as you can, okay? The flatter it is, the quicker that this is actually going to chill. So I could even press this a little bit thinner if I wanted to. I did a class recently with some 13-year-old teenagers. It was great. And I think they had a slight competition in who could press theirs the thinnest. And seriously, the girl that pressed hers the thinnest, hers chilled the quickest. It's all about science. It's all about surface area. And it's those little things that you don't really think about, but they do make a little bit of a difference. So I pressed my guy pretty thin. Here we go. This is going into the refrigerator. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna put mine in the freezer. So I use my freezer just to kind of help speed up things, help with the chilling process. When you're making this recipe again in the future, go ahead and just stick it in the refrigerator. It should be in there about 30 minutes. But again, so we're not on here for too long, which I know you guys love it and I love it too, but just so we're not waiting for too long, let's go ahead and stick it in the freezer, okay? And I'll remind you, and we're good to go. And grab your fruit. So I'm gonna grab my fruit. I'm using half from the freezer and half fresh. I've actually never done that before with a pie, but I think it should be fine, so. Here we go back to the kitchen again. You guys wanna see, I've got quite a few macaroons in the freezer right now.
Ne montre pas ça.
All right, here we go. Okay. Oh, fruit. Yes. All right, cool. Okay, questions about pie dough. Let me have it. I want all your burning questions about pie dough. Seriously, take a moment, because I know it's something that gives a lot of people problems, and so I want you guys to feel really comfortable being able to make it yourselves.
No questions so far.
No questions?
No. Okay. Someone's thanks you for your beautiful recipes. It's BK Tommy.
It's my pleasure. All right, so I'm just doing a little quick cleanup, and then we're gonna move on to our fruit part. Like I said, and here we go. Cool. So for your fruit, I'm doing a fun mixture today. I'm just like kind of throwing everything that I had that's seasonal, that I had it in my refrigerator, all in a bowl, and I'm just gonna call it a bumbleberry layer of goodness. And we're gonna go with that.
Hello.
So the cool thing about this recipe is essentially you just need 4 to 5 cups of fruit. Yes.
Got some questions.
Oh, questions. Okay.
Do we turn the oven on? No, not yet.
It depends on how long your oven takes to warm up. Mine's pretty fast, but if yours is going to take about 30 minutes to preheat, then yes, I would go ahead and turn it on. Okay. We're going to turn it on to 200 degrees Celsius or 400 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay.
Make sure that the shelf in your oven, the rack, is at the lower part. Okay, that's really important.
Alors, exactly how should the final dough product feel?
It's hard to describe. It feels like dough. Like it feels not too wet, also not too dry. And you can see that when you're actually looking at it. So when you're actually feeling it, you shouldn't have lots of dry pieces falling off. So it should be wet enough that everything is holding together, but not so wet that when you're holding it in your hands, it just feels like wet, if that makes sense. And so it should be just moist enough to where everything's holding together in the ball. And so that's why when I got to those last couple additions of water, I was really careful with how much I was adding. So I was only adding about a teaspoon at a time or even less, because I was looking at how many pieces of like crumbs that I had left that needed to go into the big ball. And I knew that it doesn't take that much water. A lot of people overestimate how much water it takes to bring everything together. And so that's why I really encourage you to really just add just a little bit at a time, and that makes a difference. Cool?
Okay. Can go ahead.
Oh, thank you. You guys stop me anytime. I'm happy to answer questions, okay? That's what makes this fun. All right, cool. So, what I have today is white nectarines. I have blueberries. I have raspberries I'm gonna add. These guys are organic, and so I did not wash them because here's the thing is when you start washing any sort of berries, so any raspberries or strawberries in particular, they start breaking down. So what does that mean? It means that they start getting kind of oozy and, like oozing their liquids, and so that's not so great. Especially for this, you don't really want that to happen. So I'm just taking a look and seeing if there's any leaves in here that I need to take out or any ones that aren't so happy. So there we go. So I have nectarines. I also have some fresh currants. So these I actually didn't see until I came to France, but these are fresh red currants. In the US, you want to try? These are really sour. Okay. So they're used a lot for decoration. Yeah, it's okay.
No.
All right. They're used a lot for decoration because of how pretty they look, and they also add this nice little acid finish. And so I'm adding some of these, and so I'm just going to take them off really quickly. There we go.
You saved the video after?
Yeah, so we're going to save the video after. So I will save it, and I will post it to my Instagram stories, so you guys will have access to it for 24 hours. And you know what I'm going to actually try to do this time is post the video to Facebook as well, so that it would be saved there permanently. And maybe even save it to my website too when I post the actual recipe for you guys. So then you have it for all of time, which is kind of fun. All right. So when you're thinking about berries, just kind of in general, this is where you can have a lot of fun. Obviously think with the seasons. But then think about what goes really well together. So like blueberries and peaches would be fantastic. This is kind of what I'm doing is just kind of all sorts of everything, which will be fun too. So here's my frozen bits, which like I told you, I think some of the people that have joined my classes before, I've said this, and I'm sort of a lazy go with it baker sometimes. When I know that
originally good fruit fresh from the market.
Oh, absolutely.
All of them.
This, yeah. And so this, I have some strawberries that I cut into pieces. I have some blueberries. I have some cherries that I halved and pitted. And that's it. Some more currants are in there too, which is kind of fun. And so what I'm doing is just breaking those frozen pieces up so I don't have any massive clumps in here. Okay. And you'll notice I actually, again, this is the joy of this pie and just pies in general, is that I didn't really weigh this. I'm just really eyeballing it. But if you need to, please do weigh it at home. It should be about 4 to 5 cups or about 750 grams. I'm going to add some lemon verbena. What you could also add is fresh thyme if you're thinking about it. Sage and apple would be kind of interesting, or sage and rosemary is one of my favorite combinations. And so kind of just think about whatever fresh herbs that you might have in your garden or that you might have picked up from the store, and think about adding those too, just as a fresh little burst of flavor. Okay?
Yep.
Yeah. All right, so I just tore that into pieces to break up the flavors. Okay. And we are going to move on to, I'm gonna make sure I'm following our recipe correctly. We are going to move on to the flour, and so for this I am going to use my scale just so I make sure that I have the right amount. Okay. So for my flour, I am adding 45 grams. It's not a lot. And this is going to act as my thickening agent. So it's really important to have this. And then we're also going to add some cornstarch as well. Okay, and there we go. So 45 grams. And then let's go ahead and add our cornstarch. Okay. So for this one, it's 2 teaspoons. It's always sad when I'm like not baking with music because I usually end up like dancing in the kitchen a little bit.
That's for private classes only.
Yeah, oh yeah, there we go. That's my little fun time. Alright. I love how it's like falling out of the bag but not actually getting in the teaspoon. Alright. Here we go. So 2 teaspoons of cornstarch. And then let's go ahead and let's add your spices. So I told you guys to just kind of have fun with it, have a little bit of whatever you have on hand. So classically what I really like to add, and I'm actually going to add all 3 of these because I think it just goes really nice with fruit in general, is ginger. You can do fresh as well. So it's gingembre en français.
I've got a question. Is 45 gram approx 1/3 a cup of flour?
It's like about a quarter cup.
A quarter. Yeah. So 45 gram is a quarter.
A quarter about.
Good.
A quarter to a third, yeah. So yeah, I have cinnamon, which in French is cannelle. There we go. And then I also have cardamom. I think it's really nice. It's a nice warming spice, which is really good, and so it goes well with everything. I'm just gonna eyeball it. I just eyeball my spices. I do it so they're subtle, so I don't over add spices. I think that's important to say. And so I know cardamom might be a little bit strong, and so I'm just gonna add a little sprinkle. There you go. And I'll have Francois get a little bit closer so you can guys see about how much I'm adding. So do you see the light brown there? I just did a little sprinkle, and now I'm gonna add the ginger. And this is kind of the fun of it. And so I think I've told a lot of people this is sometimes I bake how a lot of people cook. And that means that I just kind of throw in things when I know that I can. And so this, obviously, I know that the amount of spices that I add, obviously you can overdo it, which could ruin the dish, but I'm not adding a horrendous amount of spices. And so I know that it's not going to ruin my flavors or something if I just kind of mess around with it. Next, you're going to add your sugar. So it is 100 grams, which is a half cup. Okay. There we go. And last but not least, I'm going to have you guys zest in a lemon if you want. This is optional. I always think it's really nice because it just gives it a little bit of a pop. So whenever you're making something, I think a lot of people have heard of like, what is it? It's like fat, acid, and something. Help me out, guys. But it is really important. So you have to have a really good mixture of those ingredients in order to have a really good final result. And so I'm zesting a full lemon. This is my zesting technique. I just use a microplane. Okay. Here we go. And you see it's all building up right here, and I'm just gonna tap it out. I'm gonna have you guys add some lemon juice too, but not just yet. So we're gonna toss this all together first. Which should be interesting because my bowl is pretty full right now. So we're tossing this together, and it's important that your flour and your sugar, it coats all of those nice and good fruits. Oh. One's gone missing. It'll coat all of them through. Hey, this is like real baking here, guys. So we're coating. Maybe I should have done a bigger bowl.
Yeah, this one is way too small now.
This is awesome. Alright, so do you guys see how nicely coated it is?
C'est bon.
Yeah, it's good, huh? Nothing goes to waste here. And that guy's done. So I'm going to have you guys add, if you want to, a little bit of lemon juice, which obviously, of course, I don't have a knife right here.
How much sugar did you add?
I added a half a cup or 100 grams. Let's see if this works.
C'est pas mal.
It's good, huh?
Oui, avec
Totally not working. Hold on. Take a nice look at the fruit. I'll be right back. All right. So I'm gonna have you guys just add a squeeze
Pas
of
trop.
lemon, not too much.
Yeah.
Francois is not a fan of lemon, but let me just tell you guys this in general. You're not going to be able to taste an overwhelming sense of lemon in this recipe. We're just adding a touch because that elevates your flavors and it just lets everything kind of show and sparkle and that sort of thing. And so at this point, obviously if you have a spoon, which of course I don't have that handy and I don't want to go into the kitchen again, but go ahead and just stir that in again and make sure that it gets a little bit in there, okay? So this is what your filling should look like. So look how it's nicely kind of coated with flour. All of your ingredients are really happy. It should smell really good too,
Yes.
which is good.
And yes, you can add fresh sage.
You can absolutely add fresh sage. You can add whatever fresh herbs that you want. I would not recommend adding dried herbs because I don't think you're gonna have the same effect. Dried herbs, they might soak up the liquid and kind of rejuvenate a little bit, but I don't think it's gonna have the nicest texture, so I would really recommend having fresh herbs if you're gonna do that. All right. So go ahead and set that aside. Clean off your work surface, and we're gonna take our dough out of the freezer and we're gonna roll that guy out. So make sure that you have your flour handy, a rolling pin, and a clean surface. I have all sorts of things going on over here.
How much lemon juice did you add?
Just like a squeeze.
Oui.
Yeah, not too much. Yeah, I wouldn't overdo it. I would just do like a half of a lemon, and I didn't even do like the full half. I just did a squeeze. So, there we go. Any other questions? I love questions. I think they're fun. Okay. So you guys know, I said cake pan or I said pie dish. So grab whichever one you guys want to work with because I've done it both ways. And so this is kind of awesome that you know that you can make a pie without actually having a pie dish. Indeed you can, and I will show you how. It's very exciting. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab my pie dough. You guys do that as well. If you have not started to preheat your oven yet, go ahead and do that now. So again, for your oven, it is 200 degrees Celsius or 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And then you want the rack to be in the lower third of the oven. Cool.
And there is no milk in the recipe.
There's no milk, but have it close to you because we're going to use it in just a second. So I have my milk right here.
Ah oui, not yet.
No,
Okay.
not yet.
No milk yet.
Oh. Interesting. Alright. Are you having a little nice view of the area? Okay. I'm gonna grab my rolling pin. Let's see. I will use this one today. There we go. Cool. And here we go, guys. So let's go ahead and we're gonna flour our surface. So go ahead and just take a little handful. What you can do is just kind of sprinkle it like this. If you want to be really pro-fish, what you do is the motion is like you're skipping stones. Do you see? No, that's for salt as well. It's like you're skipping stones, okay? So you want a nice amount of flour. What I want you to do too is take your rolling pin and you're gonna want to put flour on this as well. So I just put a little bit of flour in my palm and then I just rub it up and down the rolling pin. Go ahead and take your pie dough. And I'm feeling it now and I'm just telling you guys that if you have time, I would go ahead and wait maybe another 5 to 10 minutes actually before you roll it out. Because I'm feeling my dough and it's pretty soft in the middle. It's going to be fine to show you guys, but I'm just telling you that if you're at home It's nice when it's nice and chilled all the way through, but you can still put a fingerprint in it in terms of rolling it out. If your dough is too cold, you're gonna be just fighting with your dough the entire time. And so you wanna make sure that if it's been in the fridge for a long time, which is not a bad thing, this will be totally fine in the fridge for a couple of days actually, 2 to 3 days max. Or you can stick it in the freezer. That's totally fine as well. And but the important thing is when you're ready to roll this out, you don't want it to be so hard that you're going to be having to fight with it constantly in order to get it rolled out and as thin as you want it to be. So make sure you can actually push like a fingerprint in it pretty easily. Okay. So when you're rolling this out, what I want you to do is you're going to be constantly moving your dough. This is important because you don't want it to stick to your rolling out surface, okay? So go ahead and start in the center. This is the rolling pin that I like. It's all even the whole way. It's not tapered. There's no handles to hold on to. I just press it so I can actually have a really good feel of the rolling pin. So this is where it works for me. So I'm starting in the middle and I'm just going out towards the ends. And then I'm gonna do a quarter turn. Did you notice how it cracked? That's okay. A lot of people worry about this. I don't. This just means that the edges were a lot colder than the center, okay? And so if that happens, just press it back together. It'll be totally fine, okay? And then repeat. So just in the middle. And if it's starting to stick, which you see here, friends, welcome closer. We need to show this to everyone. Okay, do you see this here? It looks kind of like there's butter showing through, which there is, because there's a lot of butter in it. Do you see how it feels tacky? It's a little bit sticky. So if that happens, pat some butter or some flour on it. Don't pat butter on it, that would not work. But pat some flour on it because that is what's gonna stick to your rolling pin and make it really difficult to roll out. So make sure you have a nice amount of flour on the top here, okay? So again, just starting from the middle. And you notice I'm not actually rolling all the way to the ends. Do you see that? And again, quarter turn. Did you see how it stuck for me just a little bit? I'm moving it around. If it sticks, get some more flour, just sprinkle it underneath, and you're good to go, okay? There we go. Keep rolling out. I'm rolling it out until it's about 3 millimeters thick, okay? I'm also making sure that it's big enough to fit into my pie dish or my cake pan, okay? So it's almost there for me, but it needs to be a lot bigger. So again, keep moving it. I just roll, move, and roll again, and keep going. And it works. But you should have a really beautiful dough right now. It should be really beautiful. You guys see? Yeah.
Rolling.
Yeah. And I'm not worried about a perfect circle because I'm gonna cut this guy. So I have some clean cushion scissors with me. But you notice even when it gets big, I'm moving it around. Okay. And so now I'm just gonna start rolling in all directions because it's almost the thickness that I want it to be. And so right now I'm just finishing off the rolling. I've got something really weird going on over here, but that's okay. Again, like I said, I don't worry about these things, and I think that's really important. So when you're baking, it's to not, there's no pressure, like those sorts of things you can fix. Okay, so I have my pie pan, which has a little bit of verbena on it. There we go. And I have enough pie dough, so we're good to go. Again, if you're using a cake pan, let me grab one so I can show you. Oh, here we go. Did you just eat more berries? Awesome.
I did.
So if you're using a cake pan, you're gonna do the exact same things that I'm mentioning today. It's it's just gonna be a little bit different in terms of your form, okay? So again, just put it on there. Make sure that you have a couple of inches around the sides, all right? So again, here, this is actually a really good example for you guys. I have a really weird triangle shape going on, but I'm not worried about it. I'm gonna show you guys how I'm gonna fix that. All right, so when you're ready to put it in your dish, whatever you're using, I want you guys to take your rolling pin and wrap it around your rolling pin, like so. There we go. Scoot your dish up, and then you're gonna put the sticky side, so this is gonna be the more tacky side down, so this is the side that you had up, okay? So I'm just unrolling it on top here. There we go. And again, if you're just doing this with a cake tin, you're gonna do the exact same thing that I'm doing here, okay? Now what I want you guys to do is just kind of lift up your edges so that it can fit into your pie dish a little bit easier and it's not stretching, because you see right now, I have a lot of air under this side, and so I'm just lifting it up and allowing it to fall a little bit easier into my dish, okay? So when I'm happy with that, are you guys excited? A lot of people haven't seen this and done the really pretty edges and stuff like that, so we're gonna do that.
You didn't put any butter on the dish?
No, no butter. Because there's a lot of butter in this crust, and so it'll come right out when it's done baking.
And no need to flour the dish, to put some flour?
No, no need to flour it.
Flour.
Yep. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go around the edges and cut. Do you see, I'm feeling for the edge of my tin here, so my pie crust is right here. I'm gonna cut about, so there's about an inch, or sorry, about a centimeter or 2 centimeters overhang. So let me show you what that looks like. So, just kind of cut in. My berries are disappearing again. You can see, it's about this much. Francois, can everyone see that? You can see. There we go. Oh, now some pie dough has disappeared as well. So I'm gonna go around the whole edge and just move your pie tin or your cake pan to help you out here. And so this is, like I said, it's about a centimeter or 2 overhang. Okay. Are you guys impressed with how fast we're making this? I'm actually gonna tell you guys something really cool at the end too, which is gonna change your Thanksgivings for forever if you're located in the US. Trust me, it's gonna be an awesome tip. All right, so I trimmed all the way around. For my cake pan, I would do the same thing. For your cake pan, you can't get as elaborate with your edge because it's gonna fall in relatively easily. I hate to say it. And so the easiest thing with your cake tin to do in terms of finishing this off at this point would be to very quickly and easily go ahead and put your fruit mixture in. And then you just fold your overlapped, so you fold your pie dough over that. Does that make sense? So the top's gonna look a little bit rustic, but it looks really beautiful when it's done. So again, if you're using your cake tin, go ahead and do that. And so go ahead and put your berries in if you're doing a cake tin, and then just fold your dough over, okay? If you're doing a pie dough though, in a pie pan, I'm gonna show you guys the classical American way of doing this, okay? So your next step is to go back and fold over your dough. You see how I'm folding it over? I'm folding it under, just like so. Can you guys see that? Hope I'm not going too fast. There we go. So I'm just folding it over and under, see? Just like so. And it should just nice and loosely just kind of hang on the edge there. You shouldn't really have too much of an overlap now. It should just perfectly sit on top of your pie dish now, on the edge. So you're just gonna go around. Okay. There we go. And again, if you're working in a really hot climate and your dough, it feels like it's getting super, super warm to the point where it's like sticking to things, you're not really kind of having a fun time with this, stick it back in the fridge. Make it easy on yourself, okay? All right, there we go. So I just went around, and now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna lightly press it. So I'm making sure that fold that I just did is really kind of holding on, and it's all jammy and good to go. It's really pressed together, all right? So that's that. At this point, this is where you have fun with it. So I'm gonna show you guys the classic way of doing the really beautiful edge that you see on all of the pies, but have fun with it. And so what some people do is they'll use like a little teaspoon and are you guys hearing the smacking in the background? There's more berries that are going disappearing. So what you can do is you can use a little teaspoon or something like that and go around the edge at this point and make a little design, which is really cute. I actually really love that. Do you see how I'm overlapping, kind of like that? So you can totally do that. Another classic is a fork. That works really well too. So for that, you just go around the edge, like so. And then what I'm gonna show you is how to do that edge, which looks really beautiful. So you're gonna look like you're pinching someone. And you're gonna take your thumb, and what you're doing is you're putting your dough in between those fingers, and then you're pressing it. You see? So if you have longer fingernails, it makes it a little bit difficult, so just kind of keep that in mind. I'm doing this nice and slow. You just press. Can you see that? And look how beautiful that is. And so that's your really cool. So another thing that you can do is you've got a nice amount of scraps left over. And I did this on purpose because I'm gonna challenge you guys to, once we're done today, is take a moment, kind of think about it, and have fun with your scraps. And so you could do like some stripes on top if you want to, like just roll out those scraps again and cut out some stripes to put on top. That would be really fun. You could cut out some shapes that you could go ahead and put on your dough. And so what you would do is if you want to glue them on the edge of your crust is you use like an egg wash. And so you cut it out, you do a little egg wash, and then you stick it on, and that's really cute. Or just do whatever you're kind of thinking. So you could also cut out shapes, and then once you put your fruit in, put those shapes on top too. I think that's what I'm gonna do actually. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish with this edge so I can show you guys the last couple things. There we go. How's everyone doing? Good. Give me a thumbs up. Give me some hearts.
Yeah, you've got some fun.
Sounds so funny to say.
Yeah.
And there we go. Woohoo! All right, so at this point, oh yeah. At this point, go ahead and pour your fruit in. It's gonna be mounding quite a bit on the top. Okay. And it should be nice and there should be a little bit of liquid happening now, which is not a bad thing. Ooh. Oh, another one went missing. Oh, gosh. All right. So go ahead and pour that in. Guys, this smells so good. Oh my gosh.
Delicious.
Yeah. All right. And so I have a nice mound going on here, and so I'm just gonna kind of pour that off to the sides. There we go, so it's nice and even on the top. Using my spatula. You use whatever you've got around. It works. How gorgeous is that? So I'm going to, after we hang up today, which sounds really funny, I'm gonna roll this out and put some little forms on top. The last thing that I want you guys to do before you put it in the oven is take your milk. This is where your milk mixture comes in hand. this is the milk. If you don't have a pastry brush, just use a paper towel that you crumple up. That's easy too, okay? So take your milk, and you're gonna do this for your cake tin as well, that overhang, any of your crust. I want you guys to go ahead and paint some milk on top. This is gonna have it be nice and golden and beautiful, but it's also going to allow us to do one more finishing touch. And it's always those little finishing touches, right, that make things really special. And so our finishing touch today is our turbinado, or our raw sugar. So once you sprinkled on, once you put that milk on, I want you to take your raw sugar, your cassonade, if you don't have that, go ahead and use some granulated sugar, that works too. And you're gonna go around the edge, and once this bakes, you guys, it's gonna look all sparkly and delicious and caramelized on the edge too. So go ahead and do that with whatever pattern that you've done. And there you go. Gorgeous. So there's your pie. Like I said, what I'm gonna do is actually do a couple shapes on top. And I don't feel like the need to show you guys that because I'm just literally gonna roll off the dough. Use a couple cookie cutters or a knife and just cut out some fun shapes to put on the top. Maybe some leaves, some flowers, I'm not really sure yet. But let me talk about the baking of this. So when you're ready to bake it, I'll take out my little notes here so I tell you the exact and the correct times. You're gonna put it in the oven on the lowest third of your oven. This is really important because, as Mary Berry says in the British Bagel Line, no soggy bottoms. And so it's really important. Yeah, no one wants a soggy bottom.
No one.
No. So the really important thing is to put this in the lower third of your oven. Super important. I'm actually going to put the rack on the lowest kind of notch that I can put it on, and I'm going to put it there for 35 minutes. Okay, so write this down if you're not sure. So you're going to put it on the lower third or the last rack of your oven for 35 minutes. The oven temperature, again, it's 200 degrees Celsius or 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, lower third, 35 minutes. All right, at the end of that timer, I want you guys to move it up into the center of the oven. And you're gonna bake it there for the last 15 to 20 minutes, okay? 15 to 20 minutes. And then what you're looking for is nice and golden brown. Your filling should be really bubbling and happy. What I would recommend too, because we are putting a lot of filling in here, and it is possible that you might have some run over. So to protect your oven, stick this on a baking sheet before you put it in the oven, just in case. And so that helps keep your oven clean, just in case something rolls over, okay? Yeah.
You have a counter.
Oh, what?
Done. 1:30, 1 minute 30 remaining.
Oh,
Yeah.
there's counters now on live.
Oh, yeah, there is a counter, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, well, thank God that this was a fast one. I didn't realize there was a time limit for live now. So, cool. So I will put those baking instructions in my stories one more time just in case.
Allez, please repeat the baking instruction. You've
Okay.
got 1 minute.
All right, 1 minute. Here you guys go. Bake it at 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 200 degrees Celsius for 35 minutes on the lower third of your oven. That's really important. So bake it at the bottom of your oven, okay? After that's done, that timer is done, move it to the center of your oven and bake it for 15 to 20 minutes. All right, it's gonna be nice and bubbly, nice and brown. And then after that, you want this to cool. The thing that happens with pies is if they're cut into too soon, the filling just kind of oozes out. And it's very sad, it doesn't stick together. So you want it to cool for a couple of hours. I know it's really hard, but you want it to cool for a couple of hours before you actually eat it, okay? So that's it. Last big thing. You guys ready for it?
20 seconds
20
remaining.
seconds left. Okay. You can freeze your baked pie. No joke. What you want to do is once it's baked, once
10,
it's cooled,
9,
freeze it.
8, 7.
And when you're done, thaw it in the refrigerator and then stick it in the oven for about 10 minutes.
Go.
And it's good.